for many people, maybe most people, the word authority is almost entirely negative. It brings to mind powerful and dangerous and unaccountable people that we call authoritarians. We're taught to mistrust authority, to question authority, and the idea of submission to authority is equally repulsive. Now, there's a reason for this. In our fallen world, authority is very often abused, and many of us have been wounded by those in authority in our families or our places of work. But before we dismiss authority entirely, let's ask ourselves, do we really know what true authority is? What it really looks like? Words are precious conveyors of reality. They not only shape the way that we think, but they determine our choices and our actions, and they shape the kind of cultures that we live in. If you want to change society, you begin by changing language. Our adversary knows this all too well. In recent decades, a strategic redefining of many critical words has led to dramatic cultural changes for the worse. People have absorbed these false redefinitions uncritically, including many Christians. And in doing so, they've become unwitting agents in advancing non-Christian systems of belief that are tearing our nation apart. This is a disaster for the church and for the society. To turn things around, we have to recover the true definitions of at least 10 critical words. One of these words is authority. From the Bible, we learn the meaning of true authority. The Bible speaks of God as the supreme authority over everything, but it also speaks of human authority, including the authority of parents in the home or civil authorities in the state, such as judges or elected officials, or the authority of elders in the church, or even the authority that every one of us has over our own thoughts and our actions. The Bible calls this level of authority self-control or self-government. But what exactly is authority? Authority is the power or the right to issue commands, rules, laws, and to punish violations. Human authority is delegated from God, the supreme authority, and it's accountable to Him. True authority is given by God for the purpose of serving those under authority for their own good. Jesus modeled this perfectly. He said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me," and yet He sacrificially serves those under His authority for their own good, even to the point of His death on the cross, so that we might live. True authority has boundaries, it has limits. First of all, it's limited by God's moral law. No human authority has the right to murder another person under their authority, because murder is a violation of God's moral law. It's also limited by God-ordained spheres of authority. Now, these spheres include the family, local churches, civil government, etc. Just take the family, for example. In families, God has ordained that parents have authority over their children until they become adults. The family is their rightful sphere of authority, but only their family and only their children. You see, that's the limit of their authority. True authority understands God-ordained spheres, and it respects these limits. Where genuine authority is faithfully practiced, where it's used to serve those under authority for their own good, where its boundaries and its limits are understood and respected, the cultural consequences are incredible. Families, communities, sports teams, businesses, churches, even entire nations thrive. Societies that are shaped by true authority are both well-ordered and remarkably free. America's founding fathers called this the miracle of ordered liberty. It's ordered because of a clear understanding and a respect for God's moral law and the God-ordained spheres and limits of authority. But it's free because of its respect for the God-given rights of each individual to govern themselves. True authority creates environments where people are free to rise to their fullest potential. When husbands and parents practice authority in their marriages and homes, their children will thrive. When supervisors in the workplace, or teachers in the school, coaches on sports teams, elders in a local church, when they practice true authority and servant leadership, those under their authority will flourish. Now, tragically, this true understanding of authority is no longer really understood in our culture. It isn't taught to our children in their schools or in university. It's no longer accepted by influential leaders in the media, government, business, or entertainment. Instead, they have a false understanding or definition of authority. In mainstream culture today, authority has been redefined. With God stripped out of authority, it's reduced to an arbitrary, self-serving, and often quite harsh and oppressive use of power and control. Those who operate under this false understanding of authority believe that they're not accountable to God. They have no respect for God's moral law, nor do they accept the idea of God-given spheres of authority and the limits that God places on those spheres. Even man-made law, like the U.S. Constitution, are increasingly no longer respected by those who adhere to false authority. They become lawless, a law unto themselves and unaccountable to no one. This false authority is like the ring of power in J.R.R. Tolkien's famous novel, The Lord of the Rings. It's the unlimited power to force others to bend to your will. It's tyranny. When true authority is replaced by false authority in a society, the consequences are tragic, even catastrophic. Think of the most infamous tyrants of the 20th century, people like Hitler, Stalin, Mao, or Pol Pot. They had one thing in common: they all exercised false authority. They had no fear of God. They set themselves up as gods. They rejected the biblical idea that authorities are to serve those under authority for their own good. What were the results? Their oppressive totalitarian regimes were blood-stained prison camps, where people were reduced to slavery and forced to live in the most dehumanizing conditions imaginable. Whenever it's put into practice, false authority destroys. It destroys families, churches, organizations, even entire nations. So, what kind of society do you want to live in? What definition of authority do you want to shape society? Words matter. They're powerful. All genuine social change, for better or worse, begins with a change in language and definitions. God reveals the true definition of words like authority in His Word, the Bible. These true definitions, they're not just true for Christians, they're true for everyone. But unless we as Christians know these true definitions, unless we build our lives on them and we defend them in the public square, our societies will be built on false, counterfeit definitions and will reap the terrible consequences. Do you want to uphold and defend the truth about authority? We can help.